So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope that none of that stuff happens. What I would love to do, and I see most people are without their video feed, that's okay. What I would love to do, because I know that this group is really focused on career transition, which sometimes means transitioning into something entrepreneurial. So what would really help me is if you would put in the chat what your next plan looks like. Is it something, another job? Is it something potentially entrepreneurial? Tell me a little bit about where you think you might be going next, because that will help me to make this presentation as applicable to everybody as possible. So if you want to go ahead and put that in the chat, that would be awesome. I do mostly work with small businesses, but as Jeffrey said in the introduction, we are all selling ourselves all the time. And especially when we are looking for a new job opportunity, then we are really selling ourselves. The thing that unfortunately happens for most people in that situation, just the same as in an entrepreneurial situation, is most people who are not or have not had sales experience in the past have a tendency to think that selling is all about that pitch. And they think that they need to be out there pitching and saying, this is what I'm all about. And hey, look at me. And everything I have to offer is exactly what you need. And I'm actually going to take you a little bit backwards and suggest that you look at it from a different perspective. So some of what I talk about today is going to be absolutely spot on for everybody. Some of it we need to, what I'd like you to do is take the concept and apply it as much as you can to a job search or a job interview situation. So I am not a job interview coach, right? I can't help you with having how that interview goes, but the concepts that I talk about in terms of selling yourself, if you're able to apply those in an interview situation as well as an entrepreneurial situation, I think you'll see where I'm going with it and how it could be beneficial for you. So I'm just gonna have a quick peek in the chat. What I'm seeing here is some people are looking to be entrepreneurial. That's really great. Okay. Someone is looking for a job. Someone is getting a new job. Develop clients for your side business. Okay, so you're doing both. That looks like Janet is doing both. Start a business. Okay. All right. That's great. So what I'm going to do then is run with my presentation as I have it, which is focused on business. And I'd like to encourage you, please, to ask your questions in the chat. There will be some times where I may actually ask people to, we're going to do a little exercise. So I'm going to make sure you have something to write with, something to write on. And I may actually ask for participation from the audience as we go. And in fact, I will. I'm just not entirely sure exactly where it comes in the presentation. All right, so Janine says she was in B2B sales. Awesome, and you're close to being hired. Well, that's fantastic. You might have lots to add to my presentation then. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. And Jeffrey, you're going to monitor the chat for me. That would be great.
Yes, I will.
Okay, and you just let me know if there's something in there I need to know about. So as Jeffrey said, I wrote a book last year called If You Can Have a Conversation, You Can Sell. And I really, truly believe that because people buy from other people. And a sales conversation, whether that sales conversation is about selling a product or service or selling yourself, is really nothing more than a conversation. It's a managed conversation and it's planned out ahead of time, but it is still just a conversation. And I really want to encourage everyone who's listening to change your mindset around any kind of selling situation from a pitch or a presentation. Those are appropriate at times, but not usually until you've had the sales conversation first. I want you to change it to a conversation. Why is that so critical? Mostly because all of us can have conversations. We already know how to do that. And some of us are really pretty good at it. Some of us maybe it could get better, but the point is, it's a skill that we all have. And it doesn't need to be any scarier than that. I am going to give you some tips on how to make that conversation more effective. Okay, so moving right along. I like to put this slide up because this to me represents what a lot of people think salespeople look like. he looks a little smarmy to me. He looks a little like, you know, you're going to buy what I have to sell you. And I'm going to talk really fast and I'm going to make it like you cannot resist me, right? Like that's kind of the impression I get from this picture. That's not where we're going here, either in a job situation or in an actual sales situation. These two pictures, I feel, show a little bit more closely where we're going. What I get from these pictures, and hopefully you do too, is there's kind of an education going on here. It looks like questions are being asked, right? And it looks like someone is saying, well, you know, tell me about the kind of mountain biking that you do. Maybe this sort of tire is better for what you do. Or over here on the golf, he's like asking him about what kind of handicapper he is and what is his swing like. So there's some exchange going on and there's an education going on. This is part of what selling is. Well, this next slide, this to me is where we're going. These two ladies are probably not having a business conversation. It looks like they're sharing a cup of coffee and maybe something to eat in a coffee shop. Well, great. Why do I put this up? Because this is the kind of environment that we want to establish for any kind of a sales conversation. Not that you're buddy-buddy. You don't have to like everybody that you're selling to, but that we're looking for a casual, easy conversation with that exchange of ideas and information where questions are being asked, and more importantly, the answers are being listened to. So this is the environment we want to create, that where we can have a successful sales conversation. Now, obviously, in an interview situation, we're not going to get all chummy with the people. That would be kind of weird. But what I'm saying is that we want to create this environment where there's an exchange and there's confidence on both sides. Even if you're nervous, you still want to be confident, right? Okay, so this is a little thing that I included in my book because I really truly believe this. We have only a very small proportion of the population over here, maybe about 15%, who are unlikely to be successful in any kind of customer-facing role. So that includes any kind of a sales situation or customer service or anything like that. And that's because those people are tremendously shy or really struggle with, you know, essential communication and connecting skills. Over here on the other side, what we have over here is those people, because a lot of people say, well, don't you have to know? Aren't you naturally born as a salesperson? No, excuse me. Yeah, maybe 15% are naturally inclined with the kinds of skills that make you a better salesperson. Probably makes you a better conversationalist too. But that means the rest of us, 70% of us, can be taught sales skills. So that's kind of what 40 Plus is all about. It's about saying, hey, you already have a lot of experience, but let's give you some of those extra skills that you're going to need to be successful in whatever your next endeavor is. So that's what this is about. You can learn how to sell, and you can learn how to sell yourself. This is my favorite slide. These next two slides are probably my favorite because it totally disabuses the notions most people have about selling, except for probably Janine, because she knows better. All right. An average sales rep, the orange here is the client, and the blue is the sales rep. Notice it says average sales rep. And who's talking more? The blue is the sales rep, and the sales rep here is doing the vast majority of talking. This is important when we look at this slide. What's happened? The top performing reps, this orange is the client, and the blue is the sales rep. Who's doing more of the talking? Right? It's the clients. They're doing the talking, which means your sales rep is doing more listening. Now, this may not be directly applicable to a job interview situation, but it hands down is how a sales conversation should go. You, as the representative, should be talking less. At least, probably I reckon this is about 40%, this is about 60%. You're asking questions and you're clarifying, and there is information that you get to share when appropriate, but the client is doing the majority of the talking. This is really, really key and something that most people don't understand before I come and tell them about it. Okay, so here is a framework for any conversation but more particularly a sales conversation. First most important thing is to build rapport. And lots of people are really good at this because, you know, we've been doing this for a long time. None of us have just starting out of the gate, are we? We've been building rapport with people for a long time. So let's just talk really quickly what rapport is. For me, this is not just small talk. That's what most people think of it. But it's more than that. This is where you're looking for points of connection between you and whomever you are speaking to. That point of connection could be, excuse me, my friend who's a networking strategist, who I believe also presented to this group. She says, don't talk about the weather. And she and I have a little friendly argument about this. I think talking about the weather is completely appropriate when the weather is doing something that creates the shared experience. So when we have Snowmageddon, or one time I was at an event, it was a networking event, and a tremendous thunderstorm broke just as that event was starting. So everyone was arriving completely bedraggled and having difficulty slugging through the rain to get there. That's a shared experience that creates instant connection. So whatever it is that you decide to talk about, you're looking for points of connection. And that could be, let's go right here, right now. Lori will also say, don't ask somebody what they do when you meet somebody, unless you need to know that. A much better way to go is my favorite, or it used to be. It's a little harder now. I used to like to ask people where they were going on their next vacation. Well, nobody's going anywhere now, but hopefully we can still be dreaming about where we're going on our next vacation. Or one of Lori's favorites is to ask, what are you excited to be working on right now? So in a job situation, it's going to be a little different, but I still think it's very, very critical to establish some sort of personal connection where possible as you get started into your job interview, 100% in any kind of a sales conversation. Okay, step number 2 is to review. And what I mean by review is review what you already know. So in a sales conversation, you should have done your homework, and anything that is available in the public domain should be information that you already have. What you also want to do is, if there's been any previous conversations, like maybe during that time when you're setting up an appointment, just review and make sure that nothing has changed. This is important because it shows that you've done your due diligence, and also that you understand what the issues are, which is we're going to point number 3, that you understand where things were, and you've also had the opportunity to find any insight that you may have gleaned because you're an outsider. So something that you may have noticed that is pertinent to this organization or this industry. So this is where, and you may bring that up there, or you may wait, okay? Number 3, you're going to talk about the issues and the goals. And this is what we're going to talk first about the sales conversation. You want to know, what is this company or this individual struggling with that you can perhaps help them solve? Because sales is nothing more than that. It's connecting someone who has a problem with someone who has a solution. That's all that selling really is. So you want to make sure that the issues that these people are encountering, and this also does apply in a job interview, what is the situation they're encountering? As an organization, they're hiring somebody to do what and for what purpose. You want to know, where are they going? And if you've done your due diligence as a potential hire, you're going to know that this organization is aiming towards this. Maybe they want to float and have an IPO. Maybe they want to open 7 new locations. Whatever it is, this is where you learn about what the goals of the organization are. And only then, after you've done all of those 3 things, only then do you get to problem solving. And problem solving in a sales conversation is when now you are given permission to pitch, as you were. This is where you can start to outline possible solutions. And this is where, as a candidate, you can start to outline why you might be the best fit. Do you see why you need to understand where the organization is going and what their issue is first? Because otherwise, especially as a job candidate, you may be telling them all sorts of amazing things about you and things you've accomplished, because we've all accomplished a lot of things, but it might not be what they're interested in hearing. So the key here is to make sure, in both scenarios, make sure that you really truly understand what this person or this organization really needs. Then you match what you bring to what they need. Make sense? Okay. I want to talk about compelling questions. And this is really critical for a sales conversation, especially. So there's a lot of stuff out there about a discovery call or a discovery sales conversation. That's where you're getting this sort of nitty-gritty of that business. And this is appropriate also for a job interview. You're getting the nitty-gritty of the organization or whatever. I really think that the information that you learn from a discovery call is probably 85% or even higher information you should have found before you have this conversation. Because everything is available online, and there are so many places that you can look for information that didn't used to be available but is now. So there's really no excuse for not knowing before you arrive. Okay, so the questions that you're asking that are really meaningful in your conversation are not those discovery questions. It is okay, of course, to clarify something that you may have found in your research. Because you may have found something that you're like, well, this actually doesn't make sense, or it's contradictory or whatever. So absolutely, you should clarify, because that again illustrates that you've done your homework and you are prepared. You know a lot about this organization or this individual. So where the compelling questions come in, that's where they take things to the next level. A compelling question is a question that makes someone think, really think about what they need, but is asked in such a way that they answer in terms of what you need. Okay, let me give you an example. So you're really trying to, and this is where it's so important that you've prepared these compelling questions ahead of time, because not very often can you just pull them out of the hat like this. They need to have been thought about ahead of time and prepared in advance. And I'm not saying that you need to read them off like as a script, not that at all. Just that the general outline of what that question is trying to get to, you already have ahead of time. So an example would be, let's say that you are a small business, well, yeah, you're a small business provider. Let's say you're a marketing communications firm and you're talking to another small business about helping them with their social media, let's just say. So your compelling question might be something like, so I understand that you're looking to grow your sales revenues by 20% this year. And one of the things that you're considering is social media. Okay, can you tell me where, so no, we're gonna say, let's see. Can you tell me what kinds of engagement is most likely to bring you additional new clients? And they may not know, but you, by asking that, it begins to open a discussion where you can start to talk using your expertise as a marketing communications professional who knows something about social media, but combining then with where they want to go with the use of that social media. I have to admit, that wasn't my best example. That's probably because I don't feel great. But I hope that you see where I'm going with this. And what I would like you to do now is just take a moment, grab your pen and your piece of paper, and I want you to think about your situation, either as a prospective entrepreneur or as a prospective candidate in an interview. And I want you to just jot down, well, you have to think about it a little bit, and then jot down a question that you could ask that would be a compelling question. All right, Janine's actually put her question into the chat for me privately. Janine, is it okay if I share that?
Yeah, go for it, Kim.
Okay, and I'm gonna now giggle because I think I know what you're selling. and even more funny, you're gonna laugh even more when you know that that's what I did too. When I first came to the US, my first job was at selling Xerox. So I'm guessing you're in a related field. Okay, all right, everybody. Hopefully you've had a chance to write down at least one question. This is an exercise that I absolutely use in every workshop that I deliver. And sometimes people can come up with questions really pretty quickly and pretty easily. That's usually because they're already in that mindset. And other times it takes a little while. And that's okay. And I would encourage you, as you go about whatever your next venture might be, if it is entrepreneurial especially, I would encourage you to really consider this as you think about having sales conversations. And it's appropriate even in your very initial sales conversations that may be happening just over the telephone. I like to take a more direct approach there, but that scares most people. So let's assume that somebody has contacted you and said, yeah, I'm interested in your product or service, and you're having an actual conversation. So this is where we'll go. All right, so Janine has given me permission to use hers, and hers is awesome. I'm thinking that she's been trained by those nice people at Xerox, just like I was. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why her question is awesome. So hers is, how often do you experience a traffic jam at the printer that causes associates lost time and frustration? Okay, why is this question so awesome? It's talking about a pain point that her potential client is likely to be experiencing. And she's A, confirming that they do experiencing it, and B, she's also pointing out in a subtle way the knock-on effects. Lost time, frustration. These employees are not going to be working at their best if they're frustrated, right? And what she's also done is teed up the solution that she can offer, right? She's nodding. She's been trained by Xerox for sure. I know it. But here's why this is such a great example. All those things I just said, but also, and I didn't say this part yet because I didn't want to get everybody all confused. When you can connect your compelling questions to the thing that you do better or differently than anyone else, how can they possibly say no, right? So if you've been listening really carefully in your sales conversation, and you know what their issues are likely to be, or even in fact what they are, because they've already told you, and you ask a question like this that aligns with the thing that only you can deliver as a solution, do you see how suddenly they're unlikely to want to go anywhere else? You just solved their problem for them. And yeah, people will say, oh, it might cost more. Yes, it might. But if you are the only person who can solve their problem in this way that you've just told them is a better way to solve it because of the way you ask the question, then price suddenly doesn't even become an issue. And it's all about the value that you deliver because of the way you solve this specific problem that they are experiencing. Yeah? Does anybody else want to share their question? You can just unmute yourself. Oh, so what was Janine's good, compelling question again? Her question, and it is very specific to what she's doing, but I think it gives a good example of why it's a good question. How often do you experience a traffic jam at the printer that causes associates lost time and frustration? So that is a really good example. Anybody else want to share?
Sure, this is Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this. What are your pain points with your accounting closing process? Because I'm selling, or I'm thinking of selling accounting software that makes the process simpler. So trying to meet their pain points, which in most cases are complexity, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and a lot of
okay.
That sort of
thing. So actually, Nick, what I would encourage you to do is ask the question around those specific things. So ask them about complexity. Like maybe say to them, how much time is lost for your employees because the way you manage your spreadsheets is too complex. Something like that. Right. Because I'm going to be honest here, folks. I really hate the term pain points, and I hate even more what is keeping you up at night. Because let's be honest, if someone's running a business, they're sleeping. Okay, they are. They're not being kept up at night. Yeah, they're worrying about things. And what you are trying to do is uncover those things that are not functional in their organization. they may be worrying about it, but no, let's just be honest. Not all CEOs are being kept up at night, okay? So Nicholas, that was a great start. I would encourage you to just kind of refine it a little bit. Take it more specifically. And if you can, add to it, what is it about the way you're going to offer those accounting supporting services that might be different than someone else? So it might be that because you are operating as a solopreneur, and I don't know if you are, but let's say you are, it means that you're a little more nimble and you're more responsive. And it means that you can be there to help them at all times. You're always just at the end of the phone. And that means that their people have even less downtime. And that complexity is reduced even more because, or maybe you're going to offer training, let's just say, and that's going to help reduce the complexity for them. So something like that. So no, that's a really great start, Nick. Thank you very much for sharing.
And then I guess through that, you'll build rapport with them and, you know.
Well, the rapport comes first. The rapport always comes first. By asking these questions, what you're doing is deepening that relationship and digging deeper and deeper. And actually, this is a great time to share a story about me as a young salesperson. Thought I knew what I was doing. And I drove, I don't know, 120 miles, and I lived in the UK at that time. So I went from London up to the northwest of the country, and I visited these people, and I had this conversation, and I took down all my notes, and I was pretty sure I knew exactly what they needed. And I came back to my company, and I went to the people who developed the training programs, and I said, here's what they need. And they just looked at me, they're like, we don't have enough to build a program on. And I went, what do you mean you don't have enough? He said, well, there's not enough here. You've just barely scratched the surface. So what happened was my boss had to drive back up, however far it was. UK is not that big, but he had to drive all the way back and have that same conversation all over again, but with more experience, and get the details that were actually needed in order for the training team to develop the program that this company needed. So you want to keep, the questions need to be, they're really about kind of opening things up. And I would also encourage you to remember the slide I showed you about the listening. When you can ask open-ended questions, and compelling questions are always open-ended. They cannot be answered with a yes or no. There are only a very few times when a yes or no question is appropriate. And that's not it. But when you're asking these open-ended questions and you're really listening and really watching for body language, is a little harder when we're doing it through Zoom, but it still can be done. It is really amazing what people will tell you without even realizing it. It's absolutely astounding. When you ask the right question, suddenly it becomes a and people just start talking and talking and talking, especially if you've hit on something that is of a particular frustration for the individual you were speaking to. And that does apply to an interview situation. Absolutely. And they start talking, and then they start sharing all these things about what's going on and where they're hoping that a new hire is going to help, maybe even is going to help make them look better. But yeah, it's astounding what people will share if you let them. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slides now. We're going to do a few more things there. Okay. So remember, this is what we're trying to achieve. We want a casual, easy conversation where everybody feels comfortable sharing information and asking questions, and there's a dialogue. That means there has to be a back and a forth. Obviously, it's probably not going to be as informal as this image shows, but that's kind of the feeling that we're going for. Okay, so I like to ask this question, and we're going to put this in the chat too. I'm going to stop sharing, but I'm going to just ask the question, and then I'm going to come back and I want to see what people are saying. So you've had your compelling questions, you've had your conversation, you've identified what the problem probably is, and you're thinking already about some solutions. You don't want to give them all away, but you want to start to think about it, and then you tee up for the next thing. You say, okay, so I have some ideas that I want to put down in a proposal for you, or whatever the next step is in your process. And then you say, when can we connect back again? So like, would it be all right if I'll send you a proposal tomorrow, and can I check back in with you next Wednesday? Something like that. You always want to tee up the next step, whatever the next step is. here's what this slide is about. This is about how many times do you follow up? So you've sent off the proposal and you've agreed that you're going to connect on Wednesday, and you do, and they say, yeah, this was great. I need to pass it up to my boss. All right. How many times do you follow up after that? I want you to put it in the chat. There's too many people here for everybody to shout out, because otherwise I'd do that. But I ask this every time I do a workshop. So, all right, Han is saying 3, up to 3. All right, guys, I need some more. Keep putting it in there. So far, we only got 3. 5. I want to know what Janine thinks. Jeffrey says 5. Okay. You guys are, I must put everybody to sleep this morning. 7. Okay. As many as it takes to get, oh, wait. Somebody says, Darren and Janine have both, ding, ding, ding. You are the winners. As many as it takes. Yay. See, Janine, I knew you're going to be a ringer today. All right. So yes, this is actually a place where even experienced salespeople fall down. They give up too soon. So here's the thing. You have no idea what's going on in that individual's organization, or even for that individual. So these are just a handful of things that could be happening that are preventing them from getting back to you on your proposal. There's maybe been a family emergency. Maybe the company's been bought or is in the middle of a merger that you didn't, or something's happened that everything's all in total chaos. Maybe there's a global pandemic on, How about that? You know, there's so many different reasons that could be why they are not getting back to you, because it's important to you and it might be important to them, but it may not be top priority for them. So good question, Craig. How do you balance between persistence and nuisance? That's excellent. I was just going to get to that. Okay, so you want to keep following up until you hear a no. Now, that doesn't mean that you're calling every other day. Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But it does mean that you follow a process where you phone, and then maybe you email a couple days later, and then maybe you phone again, and then if appropriate, you might drop in, but over a decreasing amount of time. So the time between that contact becomes greater and greater, because what you're looking for here is some kind of feedback. And it might be, hey, you know, we just had a change in management and this is not as top of a priority as it was before, and it's probably going to be shelved for however long. And then you say, okay, thank you so much for letting me know. And you make a note about that and you reach out back when they told you that you could. You have permission to do so. So obviously, and I saw there's a question in the chat I'll come back to in a minute. So as you're following up, and in that decreasing time, then eventually it does happen occasionally after a long time that you might be like, okay, clearly this is just not going anywhere. And that could be for a whole lot of reasons. It could be because you didn't get it right in the first place, and it could be for any of those other reasons that I just mentioned. Now, I see in the chat there's some things about how does it relate to submitting an application for a job. That's a little different. And here's the reality. Most organizations don't get back to you. I understand that's how it goes. The last time I was hiring somebody, I made a point of getting back to everybody who wasn't a good fit and letting them know that. And my boss was like, what are you doing? That is a waste of your time. And I was like, no, that's being polite. These people want to know. And he said, don't be ridiculous. So I understand that in the job market, people are not getting back to you. I still think when you're talking about a job situation that a phone call, maybe another email is probably appropriate. And I would actually defer to some of the others in the group. Maybe Jeffrey, you can answer that question too, because that's not my area of expertise. What I'm really talking about is in a sales conversation. So Jeffrey, do you have any recommendations here?
Well, I think that perseverance is very important. And I raised a question in the chat. When does no really mean no?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a good point. So in a business setting, not in a job interview setting, a no may also be something like, it may just be a no for right now. And that's important to establish, because it may be like, look, we just don't have the budget this year. And then you say, oh, okay, so when does your budget year end? And when should I reach back out to you in order to be ready for next year's budget planning? Or they might say, I don't think this is going to work for us right now. And then you might say, okay, that's fine. Would it be all right if I kept in touch with you and called you in 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is they agree to? Or even, can I add you to my newsletter list? Whatever it is that's appropriate. You've already had permission to make contact with this person, and the solution may not be the solution for right now. Okay, you move on. So that's actually important too. I've been talking about this a lot, and it's not part of my presentation, but I've been talking about this a lot. A lot of people are really uncomfortable with sales because they think they're going to be rejected. Yeah, you are going to hear a no quite a bit. That's okay, because something else that's really critical that I should have said right at the beginning is that selling, remember I said it's about connecting the problem to the solution. And when you look at it from that perspective, that you're helping somebody solve a problem and someone says no, then you say, okay, can I add you to my newsletter, whatever. And then you move on, because guess what? There's somebody else out there who you can help. And this person you can't help right now, that's all right. Go find someone who can, because there are people who want your help. And so forget about thinking about it as, oh my God, I've just been rejected. This person said no for right now. I'm going to go find someone else. There are more people out there who need my help that I can help serve. And when you think about it that way, that really helps put your mind in the right place.
I also think it's very important, as you've stated, Kim, to send follow-up notes and thank yous, and letting people know that, hey, we appreciate your efforts. I thank you for the opportunity for an interview. And
yes, that's the other side. That's
Yes.
the other side to people not getting back to candidates. So if you set yourself apart as a candidate by doing that.
Good point. Very good point. Gabe has
Okay.
a question or a point that he made from the chat. He says, keeping notes on all interactions is critical for conversation continuity and rapport.
Absolutely. And if you are thinking about being a business, opening a business or starting a business, or even if you already are a business, that is critical. You may have heard of something called a CRM, which is a customer relationship management tool. You need something. It can be even an Excel spreadsheet, but absolutely, or even your contacts in your email if you have Outlook or something like that. It's absolutely critical that you keep those notes so that when you reach back out to these people, it may have been a while, and if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're contacting lots of people, you may not remember all the details. And certainly you want to make sure that you're picking up that conversation where you left off. So yes, however you keep those notes.
Can I share the story that illustrates the benefit of keeping notes? I've been a freelance writer for a long time, and so I'm selling because I have to find people who want to buy what I write. And I was talking to a prospect, somebody in a large company, and we were having a conversation. It looked like there might eventually be a fit, but not right away. And so I was keeping notes on the conversation. And then a year went by, and I thought it was time to go back and check in. And when I was talking to the person, it was a woman, mid-level or lower senior level executive. And one of the things I said in the conversation was, do I remember correctly that you were about to have a child the last time we spoke? And she said, what an amazing memory you have for that kind of detail. And I thought to myself, no, I have a terrible memory, but I have good notes. And so that helped continue.
That's brilliant, Gabe.
That continued to the rapport that we had built. And it actually didn't ever lead to any business from her. But it was the kind of conversation where it was as though there had been no gap. It was as though I had talked to her yesterday and was able to pick up from exactly where we left off.
Thank you for sharing, because that's exactly what I was talking about, and you just illustrated it perfectly. You want that prospect to feel like you know them and you care enough about what they shared with you that you remember. Even if you don't, your notes are going to help you. And I actually used to be really good at this, but I'm not so good anymore. I talk to too many people now, and I don't remember everything. But I am still blessed with the ability to remember odd things about people that especially when I meet them in person. And I can often do that, but Gabe is right. Keep the notes because that's critical. And then I will add to that. The other piece to it is that you keep the notes, and let's say they told you that they were expecting and they were going to be out of the office for a while. So, perfect opportunity to send a welcome back or congratulations on your new arrival, whatever, as long as it's not creepy. Let's be careful about not being creepy. But also, whatever they tell you, make a note and then schedule your next activity, whatever that might be. And it might be just give them a call, or next time you see something that you think would be relevant to them, send it in an email because you think it will be helpful to what they are trying to accomplish. But where I'm going with this is when you schedule whatever it is your next activity is, make sure you do it. This is a really critical part of follow-up. Lots of times people schedule follow-up and then they don't actually do the follow-up. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. I think I'm just about done, actually. Yeah, I am. so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about, if it's okay, and I think it's okay, to just tell you a little bit about what I do to help support small businesses. So I've just launched a new service where, because what I've discovered is that my clients, most of them started their businesses because they love to do whatever it is that they do. They don't love to sell. And most of them are really shocked at how much selling is involved. And so most of the people that I'm working with are saying, I'm really doing well, and there's so much more opportunity. I just don't have time because I have so many other things I'm trying to manage, or I really just hate selling. So one of the things that I do is I actually take that on and I help with the prospecting for my clients, and I deliver qualified sales leads. It's only for specific kinds of businesses. I also help businesses with sales strategy, because your strategy and your process is really critical. This has got to be more than just, hey, I'm going to phone a few people. Well, right, but who? Who are you going to phone? Who are good targets for you right now? This COVID pandemic has completely upended a lot of things. And if you are already in business or you're thinking about being in business, you need to rethink things in light of where we are right now. And it may be different. As I mentioned earlier, I wrote a book. Oh, I have it over here. This is my book. It's available on Amazon. It's called If You Can Have a Conversation, You Can Sell. And it's a really easy to read, but chock full of stuff that actually is hands-on applicable. So that's available if that's something that you might be interested in. And I'd be delighted if you contacted me, connected with me on LinkedIn. I do put out a lot of content on LinkedIn. That is, I like to make sure that it's things that are helpful. Not just, hey, look at me. I like to share things that are helpful, because part of the reason I do what I do is because I want to see people be successful. And if there are things that I have experience or expertise in that I can help people with, that makes me feel good. So I would like to open it up to any other questions. I think we covered everything in the chat, right, Jeffrey?
We covered about everything in the chat.
Okay.
There was a question from Han. And Han, if you would unmute yourself and ask the question, because I'm not able to go back into the chat to, get it.
Okay, hi Kim, hi Jeff, hello everybody. Thank you very much for this. So my question was, first of all, Kim, thank you very much. This is a very energetic and energizing and inspiring session.
You should see what I'm like when I'm not sick.
Yes, we are hoping for that day when you come back when you're not sick.
Yeah, yeah.
So what my question has to do with the step before we get to the point where we have where we have an opportunity to use these 4 critical skills, right? Rapport, review, choosing goal, and problem solving. And one of the things that I am fortunate enough not to have to think about because of where I am today, but have always thought about is how do you get that foot in the door?
Yeah.
In order to have the opportunity to practice these things. So in the past,
That's an excellent question, and that actually speaks to exactly what I was just talking about in terms of the new service that I offer. Getting your foot in the door is really hard, and it's a combination of marketing and some outbound selling. So, and I don't have this on my slides because it gets a little more complex, but since you asked about it, I will just get into it now. The most successful businesses operate with 3 different ways of getting business. So there's inbound marketing, which generates awareness and interest, and people who say, hey, yeah, I'm interested in this, I'll sign up for your newsletter, or I want to download your content, or whatever it is, or they even call you directly or make an appointment, right? Those are inbound leads that find you as a result of your marketing. That's one aspect. A second aspect is referrals. And I know there are loads of network groups out there all talking about referrals, but this is very specific. I encourage my clients to set up a formal feedback process when they complete any work that they do on a project basis. And if it's on an ongoing basis that they're engaged, that periodically they have a client review. And in that review, you are doing 2 things. You are getting feedback on how the work you're doing is working. Is there anything you could do better? Is there anything you're doing particularly well? Hello, testimonials. But also, because you're in an engaging dialogue where hopefully your client is happy with the work you're doing, then you have an opportunity then to ask for a referral, which a lot of people feel really funny about. However, if you're talking with a client who is happy with the work you're doing and you're saying, hey, you know, this has gone really well. Is there anyone else that you know who is experiencing a similar problem that you think I could also help? And if it's not going well, then this is a perfect opportunity for you to fix it. So that's the second one that a lot of people don't do. And the third is the outbound sales, which is what you were specifically asking about. So it is a little trickier. I don't recommend outbound selling activity for anyone who's selling to consumers. That needs to be, because when I talk about outbound, I'm talking about cold calling and reaching out to people who you believe are suffering or experiencing the problem that you solve. Now that, I recommend it for selling to consumers, because that's those people that call you at dinner time and like, how much do we all hate that, right? So not there. If you're selling to consumers, you need to be a lot more clever in terms of the activities you do that give you opportunities to connect with people, like maybe speaking at an event or hosting an event, something like that, where you can connect with your prospects in a way that isn't icky, because I think calling people at dinner time is icky. However, if you're selling to a business, I absolutely think it's critical to identify, first of all, who are good prospects for you right now. That might be different than 6 months ago. Who's a good prospect for you right now? And then call them and ask and say, you know, are you experiencing this problem? You know, and you want to try and build rapport. You might do something like, I noticed that there was an announcement. I noticed that such and such is happening, and it occurred to me that you might be experiencing this. Is that happening? Now that takes a lot of chutzpah, doesn't it? And not everyone can do that. But if you do it from a point of view of service, remember that you're trying to help people solve a problem. And if you genuinely believe that this person you're calling, you can genuinely help, or you believe that you can, picking up the phone and asking seems like a reasonable way to do it. And this is one place where a close-ended question is appropriate. Does that answer your question, Han?
Yes, in fact, that outbound selling, I'm glad you said that, because I've never tried it, but I imagine that it would feel really icky for me, right?
It would, or it would not?
It would.
It would.
So personally for me, it would feel rather icky.
Why do you think it would feel icky?
Because I don't like it when other people do that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be just me.
No, it's very common, because nobody likes to be sold, but we do like to buy. So the key here is to connect it to the problem and to be really smart about who you're reaching out to. So the reason you don't like it is because someone's calling you who's offering a service or a solution that you don't need. And you're offended by that, because why are they calling me for something I don't need? So when you flip it around and you look at it from the other side as the service provider, you need to making darn sure that there's like a 90% chance that this company does need what you are offering.
So here's my question.
And if they don't right now, they might be like, yeah, you know, that's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so a lot of nonprofits would list their officers. So you kind of know who they are, you know, on the, you know, but a lot of organizations don't list any officers. So are we thinking let's not go there, or are we thinking, how do I find out?
You need to figure out who in that, usually, what is it that you do, Han, real quick?
Organizational development.
Okay, so you're probably most likely going to be working with the executive director, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so most executive directors are listed on websites. And yeah, if you spend a little bit of time trying to find that name and those contact details and you can't, then yeah, move on. Because there are so many others that you can help. And those that are not providing that information easily accessible, most of them do though. But if they're not, then move on, just move on. And as you build your reputation and you ask for referrals, they will find you. Because that's the other thing, everybody, selling doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and you do sometimes, and especially, for some businesses, it's a long sales cycle. And it does take a long time. And these conversations happen over a long period. And the way we have to do business now, where we can't be in person, does add a complicating factor. So you need to keep that in mind too, that you're looking for opportunities where you can make connections with people and ask these sorts of questions in a non-threatening, non-salesy way, because you're absolutely right. People don't like to be sold. So remember, you're not selling. You're asking questions to find out if you can help solve a problem.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any good questions like that? That was a good one.
I think the heart and soul of, you know, of sales, at least with your presentation today, is the setup in reaching out to a prospective client, to a business, in this case with a job search, to the employer. I think it's critical, as you've emphasized. You got to do your research. You have to know your audience. You have to know the company. You need to learn more about the person or persons who may be interviewing you. I think all that information is very critical, and in that respect, you anticipate the questions that will be asked of you, and you can respond accordingly based upon the needs of the employer, of the organization.
Right, and I think it's appropriate in a job interview to ask the interview or the interview panel to ask them, like, what's the most important thing? Like, what's the thing that you need the most? What and why is this position needing to be filled? What is the organization trying to achieve that needs this position filled, like specifically? Because then that allows you to pull out from your own experience what specifically they're looking for. And I know that an interview is a bit of a dance, and frankly, I hate them because it is a bit of a dance and everyone's holding their cards like right here, and you know, it's ridiculous. I think in a sales conversation, actually, it's much more open. But if you are in an interview situation and you are able to ask what would be a compelling question, it would change a little bit in an interview situation. But if you were able to ask a compelling question, just think how that's going to make you look as compared to a candidate who just spews out their whole resume with no thought as to what the employer or interviewing panel is actually wanting to hear. So that was where I was saying about how, although it's about sales conversations, you can apply the concepts to an interview situation.
Kim, can I add another insight?
Yes, please.
My background is that I started as a technology person doing software development in a back office at IBM, and I was exactly what you'd expect a back office IT person to be. Not very social, not very outgoing, shy, and having now been a freelance writer, editor, consultant for almost 30 years. It really comes down to, I think the point that you've made, if I can sell, anybody can sell. It was a slow process, but by the time I got to freelancing, working for myself, I had been to enough conferences, done enough presentations, done enough networking where I was actually comfortable being in business and selling the product I was most familiar with myself. And so it really
Yes,
does come down to anybody. It's a learnable skill. It's a teachable skill.
it's 100% that. And actually, I'd like to add something else for people who are like Gabe, who maybe say, you know, I'm not this outgoing, really chatty kind of person. Actually, you're better at sales. Remember that slide I showed you with the circle, the pie chart? The people who can be quiet and listen actually are better. So those of us like me who are kind of extroverted, we need to actually kind of curb that natural inclination to do more of the talking and really sit on our hands and allow the questions to be answered. So I think a lot of times people that would call themselves introverts who are maybe a little quieter, that you have an advantage that you maybe didn't even realize you had.
Well, that's amazing insight. That's good to know.
Well, that's all I have, unless anybody has any other questions. I think we finished a little early.
Well, that's fine too. The substance of your talk, was appealing, and we will invite you back for 40 plus talks in the coming months.
Thank you. You know, actually, Jeffrey, I just realized I had said that if somebody was willing to do a role play with me, I'm happy to do that since we still have time and we still have most of our guests with us. If there's somebody who is willing, thank you, Janine. If there's somebody who's willing to do a role play with me, that often is a super beneficial thing for everyone who's attending. So those of you, especially who are looking to start businesses, yeah, if somebody wants to volunteer, we can do that in the time that we have left. And it's okay.
Janet raised her hand.
Did someone raise their hand?
Yes, Janet.
Janet did?
Oh, hello. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Janet. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Would you like to do a role play with me?
Sure, I'll do one.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Because it's really usually very helpful for everybody else. So, but tell me a little bit about you and your business.
Okay, sure.
Or potential business.
Okay. Well, my name is Janet Baker, and I enjoy and have a passion for helping businesses solve problems, particularly in the area of global data privacy. I'm sorry, I completely forgot your question.
No, that was it. I wanted to know about your business.
Oh, tell me about your business? Oh, tell me about your business. Okay, tell me about Okay, so my name is Janet Baker, and I have a passion for helping businesses solve their problems, particularly in the area of global data privacy. I'm a certified information privacy professional for both Europe and the United States, and so I help businesses solve those problems.
Okay.
And I have to ask you, have you had? Hold on, I got to go back to this. Have you found that your data transfers from Europe to the United States been disrupted after the decision striking down the privacy shield that causes your contracts to need to be rewritten?
Oh, wait, so we're already in our role play. Ah, okay. I wasn't ready for that. That's a great question. That was your compelling question.
Yeah, that's when I'm still working on it, but yeah.
No, that was a pretty good one. Can we rewind a little bit?
Of course.
What I would like you to do, I just needed to know your business, so I was prepared. Can you tell me who I should be? What kind of a client would I be? Because I'm going to slip into that role.
Okay, you could be a client that you send data from Europe to the United States, or you could be a U.S. company that sends data to Europe.
Okay, what kind of company am I?
You could be you could be a you could be like Thomson Reuters. Okay.
Okay. And what position do I hold at Thomson Reuters?
You're someone in the legal department.
In the legal department. Oh, that'll be
Right.
hard for me. Okay. All right. Let me see how I can do here. Okay, so we're going to
Or in the
pretend that.
privacy office. Mhm.
Okay. So here's I'm going to just set up the scenario here. So you had reached out to me. Well, let's say I became aware of you somehow, and I agreed to have a sales conversation with you through Zoom. So just like this. And we're having that sales conversation now. So I want you to remember the framework for the sales conversation, what we need to start with.
Okay.
Okay, so we start with rapport, and then we review, and then you have your compelling questions, and then you problem solve.
Okay.
Okay, so I already know a little bit about you, and hopefully you've done your homework on me. So this is the cool part. You can invent whatever you want, because I don't know who I am either. All right, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so all right, Janet, thanks so much for getting some time on my calendar. This is something that we've been increasingly aware is a problem that we need to be paying attention to.
Oh yes, absolutely, Kim. You're one of many companies who has these same issues with all the data privacy breaches. A lot of companies are really struggling with this issue.
Yeah, well, right, because it's something new, this new legislation, and we, as you probably know, we do operate both here and overseas, and we're increasingly being aware of some of the fines for breaches of the GDPR, and we want to make sure that we are, in fact, doing what we need to do.
Oh yes, absolutely, Kim. I think that's a big issue. I've noticed that. Luckily, Thomson Reuters, I haven't noticed that you guys have any fines, but I see some of your competitors have experienced fines in this area, and so I am sure that this is probably something that you guys are thinking about, given the scope of those fines.
It is. It's among many things, but yeah, we're aware that we need to tighten up our procedures.
Absolutely. So, let me get my question here. So, how often are your data transfers from Europe to the United States disrupted by the new court decision striking down the privacy shield? Are you finding that you've got to rewrite those contracts? Were you all reliant on that data transfer mechanism that's now illegal as of 1 month ago?
So yes and no. It hasn't happened yet, but we are aware that we need to make some changes, and we are looking for an advisor who can help us, because there's so many different layers to it. We're just not sure how to make sure we tick all the boxes and get it all right.
Excellent. Well, I've helped numerous companies that are in your position. I have a background drafting and negotiating contracts, and particularly data transfer agreements, and I'm a subject matter expert in the area of data privacy. So I've been able to offer companies a variety of solutions to meet those challenges.
Okay.
I feel like I'm really bad at this.
Okay, well, so stop. Well, that's okay. So stop.
I'm not. Like now I should ask for the close, and I.
No. Oh no,
no, it's
no,
not time
no.
for the close yet. Okay.
You're not ready for the close yet. No.
Okay.
So I'm not going to make you flounder there, Janet. You
Okay.
volunteered, and I'm not going to hang you out to dry. So you did a great job. Your question was good, but so I'm going to just ask the audience. What could she have done better, audience? You can put in the chat or you can unmute, either way. Are you guys going to make me tell her? Okay. All right. So thanks, Nick. All right. So here's what I think Janet could have done a little better. And it is weird in a role play. I mean, I'll acknowledge that right up front. It's hard to do a role play when we're both pretending, and it's all really strange, especially when there's all these other people, right? So what I would have liked to have seen was a little more rapport building. I would have liked that. But even more critically, Janet, you kind of dived right in before you really understood our issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I hinted at it, but what I think I would have liked to have had you understand was like how much data were we transferring? What specifically? Was it subject to any other kind of regulations?
Okay.
You know, like I would have wanted you to just dig in a little more. Like what's the potential cost to us? Like maybe we don't even know what the
Okay.
fines could be. And I'd also bring it into even like, was there anything that was causing a problem here in the United States? Like I just would have wanted you to dig a lot more. Here's
Okay.
why. Here's why. Because two things happened. One is you focused in right away on one thing, which may not even have been the biggest thing you could help us with. That was the first
Okay.
thing. And then, and what happens when you do that is, let's say your sale could have been up here and all you did was ask about this.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
you just lost a whole giant amount of sales possibility because you didn't ask enough. Right? And
Right.
sometimes people will volunteer information and that's great, but it's really on you to dig it out. And then the
Okay.
other thing was you started right in too much about really quickly. And again, I understand that in this scenario that's usually what happens. You started in really quickly about who you were. Excuse me, why you were the right person. But I'm not sure that was relevant necessarily to me at this point. Not yet.
Okay.
You kind of need to, it's like a relationship. You gotta, and people a lot of time equate dating to business development because there are a lot of parallels actually. You don't want to get in there and start saying, hey, you know, you want to get married before you start, you know, you want to understand who this person is first, right?
Right. Right. Okay.
Right.
All right.
So
That's really helpful.
yeah, so I thank you very much for stepping up to participate. I know that's hard, so I really appreciate that you did that because it helps everybody else sort of just when they're not in the hot seat, they can see and they can look at how to apply it to their own situation.
Right.
Well done.
Okay. Great. All right. Thanks, Kim. I appreciate the feedback.
Okay. All righty. Well, that's really it for me. I don't think I can do another role play today. Sorry, guys.
Kim, outstanding presentation.
Thank
And
you.
as I stated, you'll be invited back for another talk. And we really appreciate your efforts today in light of your cold.
Yeah,
And
I didn't have to blow my nose while I was on. That's awesome.
yes, yes, yes. And so again, thank you. And to our 40+ audience, we thank you for participating in today's event. And thank you and have a great week.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.